Welcome to the New Moon Knitting Podcast. I'm Hillary, and this is episode 11. On today's podcast, I have one finished object, a half-finished object, and updates on 3 whips. So let's go ahead and get started. Also, I'm trying to film in a different location today. I'm filming downstairs rather than up in my office, just because it gives me some more options. I think the lighting's pretty good, but I think the heat may be a little louder down here. So if you can hear that, apologies. So actually, real quick, I'll just share what I'm wearing. So this is my champagne cardigan by Petite Knit. I knit this last fall. The champagne cardigan is a top-down raglan cardigan with kind of a deep V-neck and a double knit button band. I used 2 yarns held together for this. I used Chester Farms Pride of the Flock in the color Spice Heather, and I used Mayflower Kid Silk in the color 98. I had to pull my notes out. I couldn't remember. But so these 2 colors together create this little bit of marling on it, which is really nice. I knit the second size, and I've been wearing this like at least twice a week this winter because the mohair and the fisherman's wool is very, very warm, and it has been a very cold, pretty cold winter, especially this January has just been very chilly, and so I've been getting a lot of wear out of it, and the yarns are holding up amazing. I don't have any pilling on it or anything. One thing I did want to point out was, let me stand up real quick. All right, so one thing I wanted to point out was the original sweater, let's see if I can the original sweater had 4 buttons, and you can see I have a buttonhole up here. So I had a button up here. I think I hadn't done a really good job of noting where kind of the V starts when I put my button band on, and so I put my buttons too high, and so when I would button this one, like that V shape for me was just a little tighter than I wanted it to be. I wanted something that sat a little more open when it was buttoned up. So what I just ended up doing for now was I just took that button out to see if that would kind of correct for it. And I think with the 3 buttons as they are now, I like the way this sits when it's buttoned up a lot more. So I think this is how I'm going to keep it. And I'm just going to have to do some kind of a repair here to just close up this buttonhole. It probably won't be like invisible, like you'll still be able to tell that there was a button here, but that's totally okay. Yeah, this was probably my favorite make of 2024. I just get a lot of wear out of it because of the color and because of the construction and because it's super warm. So this is my champagne cardigan by Petite Knit. All right, so for finished objects this week, I have finished my Oslo Hat by Petite Knit. This is a classic stockinette hat that has a triple folded brim. The pattern is knit on a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter needle, and calls for a DK weight yarn. The gauge is 22 stitches and 32 rows over 4 inches. Originally, this came in 4 sizes, and when I started knitting this, I was using this 4 size pattern. In the last couple of weeks, Petite Knit has updated this pattern, so it's now available in 7 sizes. But for your reference, I am using the older version of the pattern that only had 4 sizes, and I knit the second size, which is considered like a junior size, so for teens and things like that. The pattern recommends 2 different yarns, Filcolana Arwetta and Sandnes Garn Sunday. I am using this Lion brand Respun. This is a 100% recycled polyester yarn, and this color is called Blush Rosé. And so it's this lovely kind of pinky color. I knit this as a start to my charity knits this year. So I have set a goal for myself, I think, to try to do 12 items for charity this year, so 1 every month. All right, so here is my finished hat. I really like how it turned out. So last time I showed it, I'll unroll the brim a little bit, I had just gotten to the point right here where the way it's knit, you cast on in a big stockinette tube and you knit a certain number of inches, and then you pick up your cast on stitches and you work them with a live stitch to kind of create this double folded brim. I was very nervous about having my stitches not line up correctly. So out of an abundance of caution, what I did was I counted out like every 10 stitches along the cast on edge and every 10 live stitches. And I put in like a stitch marker to connect those two stitches so that every 10 stitches I had a check to make sure that I had worked the right number of stitches in between that. So that might seem like overkill to some people, but it worked out really well for me because everything lined up perfectly. I was really happy with that. You can see here there's like this little band of reverse stockinette, and that is because after you join your pieces together, I just folded it inside out. After you join the brim, you knit in stockinette for another, I don't know, like I can't remember how much, maybe like 3/4 of an inch or something. And then you do a wrap and turn to reverse the right side of your stockinette so that when you fold the brim over, the way that it's gonna look when it's done, all of the stockinette is on the same side, and you just work a little bit extra here so that there's not, I think so that it folds over a little bit nicer and you don't kind of end up, none of those stockinette stitches peek out when it's folded. As I mentioned, this is the junior size, but it actually fits me pretty well. Yeah, I think it's maybe like a teeny bit tight on my head, but when it's really cold out, that kind of additional tightness, especially around your ears and stuff, can feel really nice. And I like the length of it a ton. So it's not super tight to my head, which is great, but it's also not like pointy or anything like that. It just has just enough kind of space up there to feel kind of like relaxed and casual. I like petite knit patterns. I get a lot of wear out of my petite knit sweater that I was talking about. And this is, I think, just like this was really nice to work on as like a mindless stockinette project. I love stockinette on a sock or on a hat because it's like just the right size to feel like you're making a lot of progress. I think stockinette can feel kind of boring when it's in the body of a sweater because you're knitting for so long and doesn't necessarily always feel like you're making a lot of progress. But in a hat, you get kind of that quiet mindlessness of stockinette, and while also being able to kind of like feel like you've made a lot of progress on something. So this was really nice. I like how it came out. I 100% am gonna knit myself one of these now because I'm gonna give this one away to charity. But yeah, I think it came out really cute. I'm really hoping I'm gonna weigh this to see how much yarn it actually ended up using. And once I know that number, I'm really hoping that I can use this to make a couple of hats with some single skeins of DK weight yarn I have in my stash, because I think this is just such a nice kind of universal pattern. It would make for really nice gift knits, and also just to like have some variety in my hats to throw on when I'm walking the dog and it's cold. So yeah, I really like how this came out, and I'm actually really excited to knit more of these. One last time, this is the Oslo Hat by Petite Knit. All right, up next, I have a half-finished object. I have completed one of my basic bed socks by Emily Boldon. This is a toe-up DK weight sock with optional alternating colors for heels, toes, and cuffs. The pattern is knit on a US 4 and a US 2.5, which is a 3.5 millimeter and a 3 millimeter needle. The gauge is 24 stitches and 34 rows over 4 inches. It comes in 3 sizes. I knit the first size. There is a couple of different 8-ply DK weight yarns that the pattern recommends. Woolganic Organic Merino 8-ply, White Gum Wool 8-ply Superfine Merino, and Mill Post Merino Superfine Merino 8-ply. I am using a couple of different yarns. So for my heels and toes, I am using up what I had left over from my last pair of DK weight socks, which were kind of the Sunday Slow Morning DK socks by Camille Hang. That is some Cascade, not very much of this left. Let's see if we can, there we go. This is Cascade Eco Plus Hemp, which is an 80% Highland wool, 20% hemp yarn. And then this is GGH Mohair Melange, which is a kid silk mohair yarn. And then for the body of the sock, I am using a skein of my Solitude Wool Icelandic. This color is called Charcoal Marl, so it's like a dark gray and white 2-ply yarn, 100% Icelandic wool. Last time on the podcast, I was here, so I had done just like the toe and a little bit of the foot. And this week I finished the rest of the sock. So this is how it came out. I think it's a really nice, like rustic looking sock. Obviously very low contrast kind of between the toes and the body of the sock, but it was a great way to use up that little bit of yarn I had from my last pair of socks. So it's great for my stash busting. Last time I showed these, I explained that the Icelandic wool is 100% Icelandic wool, and on the band itself, it's like, this yarn will felt. Like, do not agitate. It's very prone to felting. And I was, a little concerned because I was like, well, maybe that's not best for a sock because they're gonna get agitated. It's just, socks are a hard wearing garment or accessory. And so I was, a little worried about that, but people made really good points in the comments that like, if your socks felt a little bit, it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially for something like this. It's like a DK weight sock, because it starts to kind of create a little bit of like a slipper sock. You know what I mean? It just makes it warmer and cozier. The one thing I did do was someone recommended knitting it a little bit longer than my foot, just to account for if/when that felting happens, that felting tends to tighten it a little bit. And so I did that. I knit it just a little bit longer than my foot, so it still fits fine now, but if it does kind of shrink a little due to felting, it will still fit really nicely. Because this is a stash busting project, what I did was I knit, so you do the Judy's Magic cast on, and then you knit the toe, and then you knit the foot, and then you do a wrap and turn heel. This wrap and turn is just slightly like pointier than some of the other ones I've done, but I tried this sock on. It doesn't bother me in terms of like the fit. It just was something I kind of noticed as I was doing it. You knit it over more stitches than some other socks I've done recently, which is just an interesting thing to mention. And then for the cuff, I just knit until I had used up 50% of the Icelandic yarn. So I just knit, and I kept weighing my ball. And I didn't get to quite 50% because I was worried. I didn't want to be too short in the second sock. I'd rather have like 3-4 grams left over than try to get it at exactly 50% and end up short. But yeah, this is a decent length sock. It'll be perfect for, primarily I'll probably wear these around the house because they're a little bit heavier, and they'll be super warm. And so, so I think this will be great to wear under, like leggings and other kind of like house pants, So, I think that's it for these this week. Once again, these are the Basic Bed Socks pattern by Emily Baudouin. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to whips. So my first whip today, if you've been watching the podcast, this has been a long-standing project, and I am really trying to get through it by the end of January, and I'm getting kind of close, so I'm hoping this is the last week this is in whip status, and maybe next week I can show this off as an FO, but it is my Eurus Sweater by Eggio Knits. This is an all-over Aran weight cabled sweater that is knit side to side. The pattern is knit on a US 10, which is a 6mm needle, and the gauge is 16 stitches and 20 rows over 4 inches. The pattern calls for a strand of Aran weight yarn. I am actually using 2 yarns held together, Cascade 220 Heathers in the color Lepidolite Heather, and Yarn Jams Surrey Halo in the color Seashell. Okay, so here we go. I have finished the body of my sweater and the sleeves. This is going to be hard to show off now. So here's the first sleeve, and then we went all the way across the body. All right, last week when I showed it off, I was up here, so I was right on the edge of the shoulder, the front shoulder. I had just finished that. And then, so I finished the whole second sleeve this week, and I'm so close to being finished. So all I have left to do is I still need to seam the sides because it is knit side to side, so the whole body is worked flat. So I need to seam up the side seams here, and then I need to add the stitches for my collar and also for the hem. I'm so excited to have gotten to this point. This is so beautiful, but I think it will be a while before I do another all over cabled sweater, because at the end it has gotten kind of tedious to do all of these cables. So yeah, I'm very excited to just have some 2x2 rib left to do and a little bit of seaming. So yeah, this is my main focus for this week is finishing this, just finishing it all so I can have it done for next week. So I don't really have that much to say about it because I've talked about it a lot. I'm ready for it to be done. And I did want to just share an update because I did make a lot of progress this week. So hopefully for the last time, as a whip, my Eurus Sweater by Eggio Knits. All right, so my next update this week is on my Turtleneck Sweater by Naringa Rook. This is a top-down raglan sweater with a big thick turtleneck and wide hems and cuffs. The pattern comes in 8 sizes. I am knitting the size medium. It is knit on a US 7, which is a 4.5 millimeter needle, and the gauge is 16 stitches and 26 rows over 4 inches. The pattern calls for a single strand of DK weight yarn. I am using 2 yarns held together, a mono skinny yana in the color olive, and Rising Tide Fiber Company's Montgomery Mohair in the color Old Salt. So these are the 2 colors together. And this actually looks the same as it did last week. Nothing has changed on it, but just so we can kind of look at where it is. So that's what it looks like. Last week when I was talking about it, I mentioned I had finished the body and I had done the cast off as suggested in the pattern, and it's not a stretchy cast off. So the bottom is not stretchy, and so when I put it on, it felt very tight, and I thought I need to like rip this out, pull back a little bit, redo the hem a little bit, and then I'll be good. And so I was looking at the footage that I had of me trying it on, and I was thinking about how I felt when I was wearing it. And I didn't really like the way it was fitting. It didn't have the amount of positive ease that I was hoping for. So I went back and I did gauge swatch for this, and I remember being like a little bit off, which is why I went up to the size medium. But I went ahead and like blocked the whole sweater and tried it on again, and it still felt tight. And so then I checked what my gauge was like, and I was off by like, I think like 3 stitches, which was way more than I thought based on my gauge. So because of that, like everything just ended up a lot smaller than it was supposed to be. And as I was knitting this, I don't know, I've knit enough raglan sweaters that like I had an intuition that it was going to be too small, but I didn't listen to it. You know, like as I was splitting for the sleeves, I was like, that seems too small, but I'm just going to keep going with it. I knit the body, and just looking at it, I was like, I think this is going to be too small. And then when I tried it on, I tried to tell myself that like, well, no, it's just because of that hem. That's what's making it feel tight. But I feel very conscious of my body when I put it on in a way that I don't like. So not trying to like, I don't know, put any kind of like negative body talk into this at all. It's just the way it fits me when it's on my body just makes me very cognizant of it being present on my body and my body itself. I don't know if that's weird, but it's just not what I'm looking for with my knits. Like, you know, this sweater, I like my knits to feel oversized and cozy and be like a protective layer, you know, just make me feel warm and enveloped in something. And that's not what this is giving me. It's making me feel very self-conscious. And I think too, that mohair, like, because I can feel it on my skin, just, it's not working. It's not working. There's nothing wrong with the pattern. There's nothing wrong with the yarn. There's nothing wrong with me. It just is not working and it's not making me happy. And so before I went ahead and dealt with the hem, I really took a second and I was like, I think I need to frog this. And that's a bummer. It's a bummer. I hate when you work on something for a long time and it doesn't work out, but it's a good thing to keep in mind that like my intuition is correct. If I see something and I'm making something and it doesn't feel like it's going to be right, it's probably not going to be right. And I'm going to save more time if I just fix it in the moment, go back and deal with it then, versus getting all the way to the end and realizing that it's just not going to work. So I still love this yarn combination, but I think it belongs in a different pattern. And I think I know what pattern I'm going to do already. I think I'm going to make a lento. I can't remember who the designer is off the top of my head, but it's a very popular design. I'll link it below. But I know that that is a pattern with a very loose gauge, which I think will be nice for this yarn combination. Also, the neckline is, I think, a folded over collar. It's not any kind of a turtleneck, so it'll keep that mohair away from my skin, which will be good. And it's a raglan still, which is awesome. And I can just make sure I swatch correctly and, you know, maybe just knit a size up from what I normally would so that I end up with something that feels more like bigger and more comfortable to wear on a regular basis. So I just wanted to show one last time before I take it apart. Might not prioritize frogging this just because it's got mohair in it. So it's going to be a little bit of a journey to get this undone. But I want to share my hits and my misses. So yeah, goodbye to my turtleneck sweater by Naringarook. So obviously I was like pretty upset and a little annoyed when I realized that I was going to have to frog that sweater. And so I kind of impulsively cast on another sweater to make myself feel better. And that was the Kal Pullover by Claire Jackson, also known as Perfectly Knotted. So this is a worsted weight top-down sweater with a drop sleeve and a brioche stitch kind of like sleeve detailing. It is knit on a US 8, which is a 5mm needle, and a US 7, which is a 4.5mm needle. The gauge is 18 stitches and 24 rows over 4 inches. It comes in 11 sizes. I am knitting the 4th size. My bust measurement fell right in between 2 sizes. So I went with the bigger size because I think the pattern recommends about like 5 inches of positive ease. And so I'll get a little bit more than that, hopefully, which I think will give me that exactly kind of what I want for a drop shoulder sweater. Patterns, positive ease. The pattern recommends a couple of different Treehouse Knits yarns, the Redwood Worsted, the Truffula Cashmere, and the Dove DK. I'm using my favorite Cascade 220. I just have a lot of it in my stash, and so that's why all my worsted weight sweaters are it. But this is it. This is my Cascade 220. I believe this color is called Tiger Lily. The color number is 9605, but it's showing up a little more orange on camera. It's like as close as you can get with a red to being orange without it truly being orange. So it's a very bright color. I think it's going to be fun to work on in the winter time when everything is kind of dark and stuff. And so yeah, this very bright red. So I picked this pattern because I wanted to try a different sleeve construction. I have made a set-in sleeve and a drop sleeve before in the past, but I don't do it a lot. I do mostly raglans. And so what really drew me to this was the sleeve detailing around where the drop shoulder is. It uses a half brioche stitch, I believe, like that runs from along the shoulder and then kind of splits for the drop shoulder sleeve attachment. And I thought that was really pretty. I also said in one of my recent episodes, one of my goals for 2025 is I'd like to do some more brioche knitting. And I thought this was like a really basic kind of entry point for me, where it's just like, it's creating a little bit of interest and detail, but it's not like all over brioche. So I get to practice that stitch a little bit, but I end up with something that's still a fairly kind of like basic item that I can wear in my wardrobe. I have not made much progress because my focus this week was mostly on the Eurus Sweater, but I have started kind of the short rows back here. So yeah, not really much to look at. But yeah, you can't even really see. My little brioche stitches are right here. There's like 3 of them. So yeah, not much to say about this one just yet. But I will let you know as I go. But the color is making me super happy, and I'm excited to work on it. So yeah, that will be the Kal Pullover by Claire Jackson of Perfectly Knotted. All right, so that is all I have for this week. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of what I'm doing, please go ahead and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.